This is Mommy.
It happened one night when we were visiting my husband's family. My 5-year-old niece suddenly pointed to a terrifying picture in the storybook I was reading to her. No way. I rushed up to the attic, where I found my sister-in-law in a state that was beyond recognition. She didn't appear to be breathing, and I was so scared that I couldn't stop shaking. I'm sure my niece was trying to tell me about this somehow. I won't forgive this. Suppressing the anger welling up inside me, I began to plot my revenge. My husband Tony and I, who are the same age, got married 2 years ago when we were 28. Despite my busy job, Tony is a wonderful man who takes the initiative to handle household chores in my stead.
I want to support you, Kate, because you work to help those in need.
I was very grateful to him for that. Because of our busy lives, we didn't have any children yet, though we both love kids and hope to have one soon. We were hoping for the right time, but it never seemed to come.
Let's take our time and not rush.
Yes, but I can't help but want a cute little girl like Rachel.
I agree with you.
Rachel is Tony's brother's daughter, our adorable 5-year-old niece. Tony's brother Kevin took over the family farm and lived with his wife Beth, Rachel, and his parents in a rural town far from us. We could only visit to help with the farm during Easter holiday and stay for a few days during summer and Christmas holidays. Kevin's family was busy managing the farm and coordinating crops with nearby farms, so our visits were just long enough. Kevin and his wife were friendly, and his parents were kind, so I always looked forward to going back. Most of all, Rachel eagerly awaited our visits. Beth and I were close in age and got along well. As an only child, she was like a real sister to me, and we kept in constant contact. Tony, look. Beth sent another picture of Rachel. She's so cute.
Oh, really? Send it to me too.
We always shared such moments. Whenever we had video calls, Tony and I would compete for the phone. But at some point, Beth stopped replying to my messages. Worried, I ran to Tony as soon as he got home from work. Beth isn't replying. Do you think something happened?
Maybe she's just busy. It's harvest season, after all.
I hope so. It's the first time this has happened, so I can't help but worry. Though Tony initially didn't think much of it, he quickly called his brother when he saw my concerned face. Kevin told us that Beth was sick and bedridden. Worried, I asked Tony to let me speak to Kevin directly. Is Beth okay? What are her symptoms? I bombarded him with questions out of concern for her. Kevin sighed deeply on the other end of the line.
You know, it's not really appropriate to pry into other people's families. Just leave it alone.
He didn't answer my questions and abruptly ended the call. What happened to Kevin? I was shocked by his uncharacteristically blunt attitude. Feeling that I might have overstepped, I reflected on my approach. Even so, I couldn't stop worrying about Beth and thought about visiting them, but my work schedule was full, so I couldn't make the trip. It was late July, and I hoped to see her well when we visited during the summer. A few weeks later, in August, Tony and I visited his family home. Since we hadn't received any contact from Beth, we were worried that her condition might be quite severe.
Kevin, where's Beth?
She's not here right now.
Wondering what was going on, Tony's mother informed us that Beth had been hospitalized. As expected, the situation was serious, and both my husband and I were shocked. While we're here, we'd like to visit Beth in the hospital.
Unfortunately, only immediate family members can visit her.
That sounds pretty serious. I almost voiced my concern, but felt it wasn't appropriate, so I swallowed my words. Another worry on my mind was my niece, Rachel. Usually a cheerful and talkative girl, she was unusually quiet. She's probably feeling anxious because her mom isn't around. I thought of ways to cheer her up and make our stay enjoyable for her. While I was placing our luggage in the room, Rachel quietly approached me.
Kate,
What is it? Do you want to talk? She seemed nervous and fidgety, possibly because it had been a while since we'd last seen each other. She stared at me as if wanting to say something, but just as she opened her mouth, Kevin quickly walked in.
Rachel, Kate and Tony are tired. Go play over there.
We're fine, really. But Kevin insisted.
No, sorry for bothering you.
He took Rachel away forcefully. Even though we're family, and I didn't want him to feel so obligated, maybe this was his way of being considerate. This happened several times, preventing me from having a proper conversation with Rachel. Even my parents-in-law seemed uneasy, unlike their usual selves. They kept hinting that we should leave soon, making the atmosphere awkward. Something felt off, and I began to suspect their behavior. Tony noticed too.
This feels different from usual.
After dinner, as we were relaxing in the living room, Rachel toddled over to me again.
I want to sleep with Kate.
But once again, Kevin quickly followed and scooped her up.
I told you not to be a bother.
I just want her to read me a story, then I'll sleep.
She looked like she was about to cry as she was carried away. Kevin, it's really okay. Rachel, let's go to your room. Which book do you want to read? Kevin, looking somewhat unsatisfied, agreed reluctantly after I reassured him it would only be for a short time.
All right, if you insist.
Thank you.
Rachel's face brightened, and she eagerly led me to her room.
This one. Read this one.
I started reading the book Rachel had chosen, and she suddenly pointed to a picture.
This is Mommy.
It was a beautiful princess, and I felt touched thinking she saw her mother this way. Your mommy is beautiful, isn't she?
No, that's not it.
What? She seemed to want to say more but fell silent, leaving me puzzled. After finishing the book, I patted her gently as she lay in bed. Rachel sadly whispered that she missed her mommy and soon fell asleep. When I returned to the living room, Kevin and his parents were waiting for me.
Kate, did Rachel say anything?
Nothing in particular. She fell asleep right after I read to her. Kevin looked relieved at my words. Then, his mother whispered something to him and turned to me with a smile.
Thank you. Now that the child is asleep, it's time for the adults to enjoy.
With drinks flowing, Tony, Kevin, and his parents were soon in a festive mood. As the night wore on, they all fell into a deep sleep. To check on Rachel, I went to her room and found her sound asleep, her face adorably peaceful. I watched her for a while, feeling a sense of calm, but I couldn't shake off the feeling about her behavior before bed. I picked up the storybook we had read and flipped through the pages until I saw the picture she had pointed to earlier. Suddenly, I realized how terrifying it was. No way. It can't be. But I have to be sure. Before I knew it, I was running up the stairs to the attic. When I opened the door, I was speechless. There was Beth, who I had been told was hospitalized, lying there emaciated and unrecognizable. Beth. I rushed to her, shaking her and calling her name, but there was no response. What should I do? I was trembling with fear, unsure if she was even breathing. I hurriedly and quietly woke my husband, who was sleeping. Tony was initially shocked but managed to carry her to the car and take her to the hospital without alerting the family. At the hospital, the doctor muttered, "Let's hope she makes it." Hearing this, I couldn't stop shaking with anger and sadness. There's no doubt Kevin and his parents are involved in Beth's condition. The anxious behavior since our arrival made sense now. I decided to gather evidence so they couldn't escape responsibility. The next morning,
I'd like to take Rachel to the new shopping mall. How about everyone coming along?
Tony suggested during breakfast. Rachel eagerly agreed, but the others were less enthusiastic. Kevin and his parents exchanged glances and seemed to communicate silently.
You two take Rachel. We'll stay.
Yeah, please take her.
They clearly weren't interested in going. But Tony insisted.
It doesn't make sense if the whole family doesn't go.
Reluctantly, they agreed to come along. Once everyone got in the car, I pulled out my phone from my pocket. Oh, sorry. I have a work call. You go ahead. I'll catch up.
What?
Ignoring their surprise, Tony stuck his head out the window.
Okay.
He locked the car doors and drove off slowly. From inside the car, I could see Kevin and his parents desperately trying to say something to Tony, likely urging him to turn back. But Tony kept driving until the car was out of sight. Grateful to Tony, I started searching the house to find evidence against them. What I discovered enraged me. This is unforgivable. I resolved to seek justice for Beth. In the evening, Tony and the family returned. Rachel had fallen asleep and was being carried by Tony.
I'll put her to bed. I'm also tired from driving, so I'll rest a bit.
He took Rachel to her room. As I watched them, my mother-in-law approached.
Kate, why didn't you come? We were waiting for you.
I'm sorry. I got caught up with some work.
That sounds tough. Did anything unusual happen? Were you in the living room the whole time?
She kept questioning me about where I was and what I did after they left. Meanwhile, Kevin went to check the attic. Shortly after, he came running back to his parents.
Mom! Dad! This is bad!
Not here. Let's talk over there.
Sensing it was something serious, they moved away from me to talk. They occasionally glanced my way while whispering. Curious, I approached them. What's going on?
Kate, you haven't been to the attic, have you?
She asked quietly, her eyebrows furrowed. I looked at her directly. Not today. I went yesterday. Is that a problem? Provoking them intentionally, I saw their reactions.
What were you doing up there?
He snapped, his demeanor changing.
Where did you take Beth?
What are you talking about?
We locked her in the attic, but she's gone. You helped her escape.
Kevin, furious, advanced on me.
You must know! Tell us where she is!
Their anxious expressions were evident. I took her to the hospital, but it was too late. You left her in that horrible state. Kevin smirked cruelly.
Finally, she's gone for good.
What are you people planning?
It's none of your business. Right, Mom?
Yes, Kate. What are you talking about? Beth has been hospitalized.
Their blatant lies were infuriating. I sighed deeply and glared at them. What about this? I showed them the photos I took of Beth in the attic, chained and lying there. Seeing the photos, Kevin and his parents couldn't deny it and looked away. Did you do this to her? Kevin sighed and scratched his head.
She went to the attic on her own.
His ridiculous excuse was met with my incredulous smile. Did they think I would believe that? I decided to take the next step. This is the reason, isn't it? I slid a document across the table. Kevin snatched it and went pale.
How did you get this? We searched everywhere.
It was a document that recorded some financial transactions, and in my sister-in-law's handwriting, it said, "Something's wrong with the flow." Where did this discrepancy go? I found it hidden in Rachel's bookshelf during my search. Let me ask differently. This is evidence of your fraud, right? Kevin crumpled the document and took it to the kitchen. He turned on the stove and burned it.
Too bad. Now there's no evidence.
He mocked me, waving his hands dismissively. After that, he came back, leaned on the table with his elbows, and looked at me with a smug expression, as if he wanted to say, "I did it."
Beth found out about our scheme, so we had to silence her.
Feeling assured without evidence, Kevin boasted about their scam. They had been buying crops cheaply and selling them at a higher price, pocketing the difference. When Beth discovered this, she confronted them. Beth couldn't ignore it once she knew.
We told her to keep quiet, but she wouldn't listen.
So you locked her in the attic to silence her? I was shocked by their actions and reasoning. As I listened, they vilified Beth, claiming they were justified. I was appalled. Mother-in-law signaled to Kevin.
But searching the house is rather rude.
City girls have no manners. Since you know, you're going to the attic too.
He lunged at me, but Tony burst through the door.
Kevin! Stop!
He rushed to my side.
Don't interfere! We're protecting our livelihood. You were born and raised here, so you should understand.
Kevin, who tries to forcefully do something to me, and my husband, who desperately tries to protect me. Tony grabbed Kevin by the collar.
Enough!
Actually, I had already informed Tony about everything I had discovered via message. So after they returned, he pretended to rest until the three of them showed their true colors. It's too late. We're already preparing to sue you.
What?
At my words, Kevin, who had been grappling with Tony, loosened his grip. The document you just saw was a copy. The original is safely stored, and I have digital backups too, so it's pointless to destroy it.
You cunning little...
You're one to talk. Oh, and look at these. I laid out several photos in front of him. They showed Kevin and his parents living it up at expensive restaurants and hotels.
What? This is just us having family meals or trips, right?
Sure, if that's all there was. But what about this? I flashed another paper under his nose.
Receipts?
Yes, and that's a problem, isn't it? The receipts were labeled as business entertainment expenses, billed to the agricultural corporation they formed with neighboring farmers. Beth found these. It's clear misuse of funds.
Damn it!
Kevin slammed his fist on the table, visibly angry. I felt a surge of anger thinking about Tony's feelings, knowing his brother's deceit. I told them that the neighboring farmers were already aware, and we'd have a formal discussion soon. I've been appointed to handle it. You don't stand a chance. I smiled and flashed my lawyer's badge. My profession was no secret to the family, which is probably why they locked Beth away, fearing she might tell me.
Kate, please don't do this. We're family.
Yeah, let's keep a good relationship going.
Even my father-in-law pleaded.
Kate, please!
But I couldn't ignore their wrongdoing. They then asked why I went to the attic. Rachel told me.
That kid. I told her not to say anything.
She didn't say anything direct. She just gave me a hint.
What nonsense are you talking about?
They must have threatened Rachel, telling her she'd never see her mom again if she spoke out. Rachel kept her promise. But she wanted to help her mom. Using a storybook, Rachel had tried to alert me. The picture she pointed to depicted a princess trapped by a demon in an attic. I admired her cleverness for a 5-year-old. I explained this to them, and they fell silent. I then showed them a video on my phone. It was Beth, testifying from her hospital bed.
What? How?
I thought she was dead.
They were stunned. Beth had been gravely ill when we brought her to the hospital, but the doctors saved her. She told me everything and asked for justice.
We didn't feed her. How did she survive?
Father-in-law and mother-in-law echoed his disbelief. Rachel played a big part.
That brat again.
Rachel had been sneaking food and water to her mother. Her compassion and intelligence were remarkable.
I had no idea.
They were at a loss for words. Watch the rest of the video. In it, Beth firmly stated her intention to file charges and divorce Kevin.
Kate, you're a lawyer. Can't you work something out? We're family.
Yes. Please tell Beth that suing us is pointless.
Their begging was pathetic. Tony looked heartbroken. I'll handle this case too. Prepare yourselves. When I said that and pushed them away, they muttered, "No way," and hung their heads right there. Later, the family was sued by the neighboring farmers. They agreed to repay the difference in sales revenue in a lump sum. Beth filed charges against them for her treatment, and they faced legal consequences. They had to pay $50,000 in damages and medical expenses, and Beth got a divorce. Naturally, she got custody of Rachel and was awarded $80,000 in child support. Kevin and his parents sold their property to pay, losing everything. They came to us, begging for help.
We're cutting ties. Don't contact us again.
They left dejected, and we haven't heard from them since. Beth and Rachel moved to her parents' place and are doing well. We see them often, and Rachel is a joy to be around. Play with the baby when it's born. I found out I was pregnant after the ordeal, and Rachel is excited. I plan to work up until the birth, continuing my role as a lawyer helping those in need. How was today's story? Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.